Although that Israel and Thailand are quite far away, but the relationship between people and government to government are quite close. And here I am at the Embassy of Israel in Bangkok to talk to the ambassador about the cooperation and relationship between two countries. สวัสดีครับ Miss Sakif. Thank you for having us today.
Thank you, Kun Chanchai. It's really a pleasure being here.
Okay, how do you say hello in Israel?
We saw in Hebrew, we say shalom. Shalom is like sawadika. So we can say shalom, sawadika.
Like this, and
yes.
you shake hand?
Yes.
Okay. Alright. So Israel and Thailand has been established diplomatic relationship for almost 70 years now. What is the development of this relationship since then?
Israel and Thailand has a long-standing friendship between our two countries. We started in a small scale, but I think we have been growing. When we started at the beginning, it was mainly agriculture. When I look at the relations today, after so many years, I can see the evolvement and I can see how much our relations have grown and matured. I think when you look at the relations today, you see that it's in almost every sector. It's on the political sector, the economic front, the tourism, the Thai workers that work in Israel, and of course each and every sector there are so many subsectors. So we are very happy about the development of the relations, and we are looking forward to the future because I personally believe that the potential is still huge. There is a lot more that we can do, and I think that as you mentioned at the beginning, there is a true friendship between our two people. There are many similarities between Israelis and Thais. And I think people come together and they understand each other, and people to people is always a very good basis. So it's not only diplomatic relations between our two countries, it's also people to people. And I believe that our embassy, my embassy here, serves as a bridge. It's a bridge between our two countries. And it's not only again that we connect on the official level, but we try to create the connections between the people. And if you're interested, I can give you some examples to what we do on the cultural fronts and also the people-to-people front to make our people closer together.
Okay, what are some of the major cooperation between Israel and Thailand right now?
So again, it depends on which sector. I think that agriculture is still a major part of our relations. Israel is a small country.
Yes.
We are a country of less than 10 million people. The whole area of Israel is about 27,000 square meters. It depends how you count, but some people even say about 25,000. So
okay.
It's not a very big country. If you go in Israel from north to south, it takes you about 6 hours. If you go from east to west at the most narrow point, it takes you 15 minutes. 1-5.
Very short.
Very short. Just imagine where you can go in Bangkok in 15 minutes. It's really a small country. So we need to find the right places where we can collaborate and where we can actually bring our strength. Since our country is very arid, we don't have enough water. So in order to feed, we are talking always about food security and water security as major responsibilities of every country, every government. Our government for years have developed the capabilities in agriculture, first and foremost to feed the population. And the Israeli agriculture today is very, very advanced. Just to give you an example, in 1948 when Israel was established, we had a population of 600,000 people.
Very small.
Very, very small. About 65% of that were farmers. A lot. And still they couldn't feed the population.
Because most of the landscape in Israel is desert?
Yes. So not enough water, and also the land was not good for growing stuff. So everything was against us. Today, in 2022, the population of Israel came up to almost 10 million people, from 600,000 to 10 million, and yet the amount of farmers we have in Israel is less than 2%. How can it be? And most of what we actually grow in Israel, we export in agricultural product. How does it happen? Because today we no longer call it agriculture, we call it agri-technology. And the Israeli agriculture is very, very advanced. So this is one field when we feel we can share our experience with other countries, for example, with Thailand. And for many years, we've been working very closely on the government level, on the business and commercial level, and agriculture is a major part.
Okay.
One more thing that is major today is the food industry. You look at Thailand, you are a huge player in the world when it comes to the food industry. You are a huge producer, you have so many big companies here. In Israel, we don't have it. What we do have are many small companies, startups, and bigger, a little bit bigger companies that actually have very innovative solutions in the food industry. So, for example, today everyone is talking about the protein alternative. This is something this is the future, where you don't need to kill animals, you don't contaminate the
environment,
earth, the environment. So this is the future. Now, companies from Thailand look at their future and they say, how can we innovate and have something new also in the past? Let's look for partnerships. And they find those Israeli solutions and innovations very interesting. So we saw already a few partnerships that were actually created recently. And we try to encourage it because we believe that there is a lot of strength in both Thai side and Israeli side. And when you put them together, it becomes something that is even bigger than each one of them. So this is what we try to do, and we try to find those areas where Israel has some advantage, and it actually comes with the BCG policy, for example, in Thailand, that it comes together well, and it is good for both of our countries.
Okay. Can you tell us some of the major agriculture export from Israel?
Agricultural.
Yes.
It's not to Thailand.
Yes.
Mainly, it's to Europe because it's much closer. I'll give you some examples. For example, strawberries.
Okay. Oh, Thai people love strawberry also.
Exactly. And Israel, in the desert, in Israel, in the southern part of Israel, in the Arava, in greenhouses, because you cannot grow it outside, in greenhouses, we grow beautiful, some of them hydroponic even, strawberries. And we grow it ahead of season. Like the main season in Europe is before Christmas. This is the time that they actually require the most. We export it even before that. And you get those beautiful, big, very sweet strawberries. Then the farmers in Israel can get a good price for that. Because at the end of the day, you want it to be a win-win situation, mainly for the farmers, maybe for those that are working hard to grow. So let it be strawberries, cherry tomatoes that Israel has been known all over the world for developing. You go to Israeli supermarket, there are a variety of cherry tomatoes, size, color, all sorts of cherry tomatoes, amazing. It all goes to export as well.
Okay.
Capsicum.
Capsicum? What is that?
Pepper.
Okay, like something like pepper.
Sweet pepper.
Yes.
Not the chilies, but,
Okay.
but the sweet pepper, the red, yellow, green. In Israel, again, in the desert, in the middle of nowhere, you have the pepper, those sweet peppers, amazing, sweet, really good, goes to export. And maybe one thing that is very interesting is the dates. The Israeli dates are the best in the world. There is no other country in the world that can compete with Israel.
Okay.
And those dates, they grow. It's amazing. When you go to Israel, you will see it.
Okay.
In the middle of the desert, suddenly you see so many.
I never heard of dates before.
Dates,
Yes, okay.
dates,
I must go and try.
The palm dates,
Okay.
better than any other country. Why? Because we grow them with drip irrigation. They get the amount of water they need, the amount of fertilizers they need, and they grow. They are big, they are sweet. We always say that from the biblical times, the land of Israel has always been the land of milk and honey.
Oh, yes.
So today, with the innovation, the agriculture and innovation, Israel has returned to be the land of milk and honey, and so many other products.
Yes.
So today, this is something that we are very proud of.
Okay. And what are some of the goods that Israel buy a lot from Thailand, and also that Thai people buy a lot from Israel?
I think that when you look at the trade balance, the overall trade balance between our countries is about $1 billion, which is not enough. It's mainly on the side of on the Thai side. It's
Yes.
650 million of Thai export, 350 from the Israeli side. It's, I think, mainly from Thailand. The export is all sorts of food. Israelis love Thai food and they love the Thai products.
That's nice to hear. Yes.
Really, like if you go to Israel, you will find amazing Thai food, not as good as in Thailand, I have to admit, but you will find Thai food everywhere. But people also like to experiment at home. And if 20 years ago you couldn't find the ingredients, you have to look for that. And today in every supermarket you will find the coconut milk, and you will find the chilies, you will find the rice papers and the rice noodles, and you will find everything there. And all the soy sauces and
Yes.
stuff. So a lot of food products, some chemicals go back and forth, other like machinery. What I believe is that in this $1 billion, there is a lot of unknown, because it doesn't actually include the software, technologies, and investment that goes both ways. So I believe that overall the trade of those things as well is much larger than 1 billion, but 1 billion is basically goods that go,
Okay.
you know, the tubes, and there is much more than that. And our job as an embassy is really to take it further and to develop it more and to see much more variety, not only clothes and food, and we're looking high-tech, we're looking to the future.
Okay. Tourism is very important for Thai economy. So I would like to ask you that is Thailand a popular tourist destination for people in Israel?
I would say that Thailand is maybe one of the most popular destinations,
Okay.
although we are 11 hours of flight away. I just came back from Israel 2 days ago, and the flight was fully booked.
Oh,
And the flights every day now are fully booked from Israel.
okay.
Become also expensive because we have direct flights, and we also have flights today. We can fly also through the Emirates and Bahrain. There are flights that you can go, and it's quite fast as well. Only last month, Saudi Arabia announced that Israeli flights can go above Saudi Arabia, so it will make the whole flight shorter in 3 hours. I believe it will make the flight a bit cheaper, and it will increase the number of people coming here. Now, prior to COVID, every year we had here about 200,000 Israelis.
Okay, that's quite
Now,
a lot.
just imagine, we are less than 10 million, 200,000 are here
People
in Thailand. So
Come to
it's
Thailand every year.
every year. and it's a lot. Now, in the past, when I was young, I came here as a backpacker.
Okay.
I used to go to the Kawasan and other places, and at that time, in the 90s, it was mainly young people with backpacks, and you know, the young people don't spend too much money. They come, they eat very cheaply, they go to the Kawasan, to cheaper guest houses, they don't spend a lot. But the situation has changed dramatically. And when I came on the flight, I just saw it with my own eyes. Families go together. The whole family, the grandparents, the babies, the parents, the children, and because everyone can find something to do in Thailand, whether it's sports, beaches, good food, just enjoy amazing hotels, everything. And people
Yes.
believe that it's not a very expensive place. Still, I mean, for me, living here for a year, I can see that there has been a difference and the prices are not the same. But for most Israelis coming to Thailand, it's much cheaper than going to other places. And they are very happy. Thailand is known to be very welcoming to tourists. They can shop here. They feel at home. I think that the real phrase is that Israelis feel at home here.
Okay. About your first trip to Thailand as a
Yes.
backpacker, when was that?
1990.
Okay. Can I ask, like, what brought you to Thailand at that
Thailand?
time?
You know,
What did you heard?
So in Israel, it's kind of popular that after the military service, we all need, to relax a bit and go overseas. In Israel, men and also women have to go through military service. When
Yes.
I was a soldier for 2 years, I was a tank instructor. So after 2 years, I felt really tired. I wanted to go somewhere to have some fun.
Yes.
And you start talking to people. So it's actually, there are two ways. Some people, they go to Latin America. And I said, no, not sure. Thailand sounded much, much better. And it was I felt much more connected.
Okay.
And we came to Thailand. We stayed here for I think 5 weeks. At that time, there was no embassy in Tel Aviv. The embassy in Tel Aviv, I think, was opened only in 1996. So we had to get our visas from, I don't remember where. It was very complicated.
Okay.
But we really wanted to come. And then we went to India, to the Philippines. But it was like a star. Thailand was our center. So we went to Thailand, then we went to India, came back to Thailand. Then went to Philippines, came back to Thailand. And we went up to the north, we went to the south, and really enjoyed. And since then, I've been a diplomat for almost 30 years now. And always in Asia and the Pacific, I was very lucky. And Thailand was always a place to return. Always when we wanted a holiday, and then I got married and I had 3 children. So always when we asked them, where do you want to go? Thailand, the children. So we always came back to Thailand, and this is a place that I love.
Okay.
And now as a diplomat living here, what can I say? It's the dream post of every diplomat, I think.
Okay. And is weather in Thailand and Israel similar? Because Thailand very hot.
Hot,
I don't know
hot
about.
and hotter.
And Israel, is it very hot also?
Yes, it is. Now in August, it's extremely hot. It's also very humid in Israel.
Okay.
But in Israel, we also have winter, not European winter, but it can go down to 5 degrees.
Oh, that's very cold.
Much colder than
Yes.
I mean, for me, 20 degrees, I'm already cold. So for me, Thailand is the right place. But I think in Israel, most of the year, it's pleasant and hot temperature. Quite similar, I think, to Thailand.
Okay. And Israel actually quite a popular tourist destination also. Is tourism also important to Israel economy?
So it is very important, and prior to COVID, we also saw a growth in the numbers, not like in Thailand, but we saw more and more tourists coming. Unfortunately, I have to say, we hardly have any tourists coming from Thailand, and I hope, it is really my hope, that more and more Thai people will go to Israel and explore and suddenly discover Israel. Because I think in Israel, it is a combination that is a win-win combination. When you go up north in Israel, in winter even, you have snow and you have forests. You go to the central part of Israel, you have amazing beaches. You go to the south, you have a desert. So if you like desert sports, jeep, I don't know, all sorts of sports, we are a very active nation. So you will find, if people enjoy sports, you will find almost every possible sport, including challenging things, in Israel. You have a lot of old, like Israel is an old nation, so you will find 2,000 years of archaeology that is very well preserved, so you can go and you can see the places the way they used to be. You go in Jerusalem, you walk in history. You actually walk in the old city of Jerusalem and you feel history around you. But then 1 hour drive, or even if you go out of the old city and go to the new Jerusalem, it's an amazing, innovative place. a very active and crowded place. Culture is very important for us. So culture is everything. You have a lot of music and dance and food. In Israel, you can find any food that you can imagine, because Israel is a melting pot. We have people from over almost 80 countries around the world, Jews from all over the world that came to Israel, plus we have non-Jewish population, mostly Arab population. So you have food from Thailand, from India, from the US, from Russia, from Yemen, from Morocco, everything. And at the end, the beauty is the fusion, because it's not, you will not go to sometimes you'll go to a Thai restaurant or to, I don't know, something American. But our chefs, they take it and they create a fusion of everything. And our chefs are so successful also around the world because of that melting pot. So I think when you go to Israel, you see the old, the new, the innovation and the past. You see the whole thing. And it's a small country. As I said before, you can travel, you can go for 1 week and you can cover most of the country.
I never been to Israel before, but there are few of my friends that went to Israel for holiday and they keep going back.
So first of all, I'm happy to hear that, and I hope you will go as well.
One day.
Yes,
Thai people need to make a tourist visa to go to Israel.
Yes, you have to do the visa, but it's very easy. You can do it very easily. I think even with COVID, most of the world today you need visa to go to places, but it's not a problem to get it.
Okay.
And most people, I think, if they go for the first time, also because of language, they will take kind of an organized tour, but you can also do it yourself, no problem.
Okay. I remember that when I was young, I went to one Israel wedding in Bangkok,
really?
and they have this smacking the plate on the floor. I think
that was maybe something unique. But it's not some. What they do is with the glass.
Yes.
When the groom, after they say now you are married and stuff, so the groom has to smash the glass with his finger, with his foot.
Okay.
So this is something more Greek. What you mentioned, that they throw the.
Okay.
This is more Greek. In some weddings it happens, but this is not something very Israeli.
Ah, okay. I see.
Maybe it happened here.
Okay. So now talking about the location of Israel. So Israel is located in the middle of a desert and also maybe in the middle of a conflict. Maybe not a best place to start a country. But yet Israel is a very advanced country and the quality of life is very good. Can I ask you that what do you think is the factors that contributed to the Israeli success of development?
I think to begin with, they say that the mother of all invention or all innovation is necessity. And I think that the situation of the Jewish people throughout history, and especially after the World War II and the Holocaust, it was basically a mode of survival at the beginning. When Israel was established, the next day we had a war started against us from all of our neighboring Arab countries. We had since then so many wars. We still have to fight for our existence in Israel. We have from the north, we have the Hezbollah, and we have Syria, we have Iran that is a strategic threat to Israel. We have Hamas in Gaza. We have to deal with terrorism. We have to deal with our existence in that particular country. So first of all, I think that when you have to survive, you do everything you can in order to survive. So geopolitically, we are not in a very easy neighborhood. Other from that, as I said before, we don't have if you want to have food security for your people, we don't have rainfall enough. The land is not good for agriculture. We don't have enough water, so we had to develop solutions. So when Ben-Gurion, who is really, we call him the father of our nation, when he started talking about desalination of water, it was 1954. Who would have dreamt of desalination of water in 1954? But he said we need to take the seawater and clean it so we can actually drink it. And today 90% of the Israeli, almost 90% of the Israeli water that we use, it's desalinated water. It means that out of the necessity, you had to develop solutions. The military service in Israel, because of the situation where we live, in the military you had to find solutions to surviving. But many of the people, many of the engineers and others, when they leave the military service and they go into the civilian life, they take a lot of the ideas that they developed during the military service and they transfer it to their civilian life. I'll give you an example. Do you know there is a pill? It's called pill cam.
Okay.
It's pill and camera. The idea is that in order for the doctor, if you have any problems with the digestion and other, so in the past they had to make an operation to open and see. Now you can take the pill, the doctor can swallow it, and then the doctor can follow it and say, okay, here it's stuck, this is we need to do. They don't need to open in order to diagnose at least. What is the origin of that technology? It seems to me that it's a medical solution, right? But the person who actually invented the pill cam came from the army. In the army, he was responsible to develop the guided missiles.
Okay.
So he said, okay, if I can guide a missile in the sky and to make it come into your window, just inside the window, maybe I can also guide a pill in your body to give...
Which it sounds much easier.
Easier. And it's the same technology.
Yes.
So it's a spillover. It starts from here, but because, again, necessity, you have to develop a guided missile. You take the same technology, you can use it for the human body for medical research. So what I'm saying is that the overall situation in Israel has been very difficult. And for years, the Jewish people never had a homeland. We never have a place. That was one of our main problems. Finally, we got back to our homeland. Now you need to live there in very difficult conditions. You don't have the luxury of saying, okay, things will happen. No, you have to be active. And on top of that, we hardly have in Israel any natural resources. Only a few years ago, we discovered gas on our shores, but that's it. We have salt, that's it. If you don't have natural resources, you have to actually put a lot of attention to the human resource. And you have to invest, and the government and the private sector have to invest in the human resource. And this is something that has been true for the Jewish people for history, that education has been the most important thing for the Jewish mothers for centuries. You put your effort into education, into the human resource, and you try to innovate with whatever you have. I think if you take all of that together, this is the reason why Israel has developed so much in such a short time, and really necessity and surviving.
And Israel ranked number 9 in World Happiness Index this year. What is the secret that made Israel people so happy?
So actually, it's an interesting question, and I also saw it. And sometimes you say, "Really, are we that happy?"
I was surprised too when I saw the ranking.
and then you try to understand why. Yes. First of all, I think it's even more surprising because we were on the 14th place, then the 11th place, and now we're on the 9th.
Happier every year.
Happier and happier. What else can happen that we will even get?
Yes.
Maybe we can never be as happy as the Scandinavian countries. Finland is number 1, I think the others, but okay, we are happy with number 9. Now, the reason, first of all, if you look at the data, so the level of the income is quite high, the level of the quality of life is high. So if you look at all of how did they decide that Israel is number 9, you see that when you look objectively, all the parameters are quite high in Israel, but I think the health system, the level of freedom in the country, all of that, it's okay. But then you have to dig deeper to understand how come people are really happy. And then I asked myself and I read a little bit, what makes people happy? And there was a Harvard University research that they checked what makes people happy. And apparently it's not how much you earn, it's not how many apartments you own, it's not even how many friends you have. It's more about connectivity, community, feeling that you are part of something bigger and having some meaning in life. This is what makes people happy. And in Israel, the sense of community, the sense of family is very strong. Children in Israel, or they are not even children, the family ties are very strong. Some people don't leave their houses, the family house, until they are 25. Even if they get married or they are 25 or 30, they live with their parents. And if they leave the house, they stay in very close contact. The friends that you have from the military service, from university, the ties are very strong. We have rituals that every Friday night, or the whole family meets together. It gives you a sense of belonging. It gives you a sense of community. You are not alone. And I think also because the situation in Israel is so hectic, and many times suddenly we have like really, I don't know, a missile flowing over to our cities, or suddenly a war or something. There is a sense of importance to each one of us. Also, I think that in Israel, there is less hierarchy. People speak up their minds. Even in the army, that is supposed to be the most hierarchical place, no, people speak up their mind. They are requested to speak their mind. They need to be polite. So people have the sense of, of belonging, of importance. And I think that's what makes people probably happy. Again, we can look at the quality of life and everything. It's a good place. Israel is a good place to live. We complain sometimes because we want it to be better. But it's a good place to live. At the end of the day, it's not only that. It's not the quantity, it's the quality, and it's the community and the sense of belonging. I think this is something that is strong in Israel.
That's the secret, connectivity, people to people. And that
exactly.
that is too bad that we see less and less of that every day around the world.
That's true. Maybe I can add something about people to people.
Yes.
As I said at the beginning, I believe that people-to-people connections are very important, also for us as diplomats. Since we arrived here in Bangkok, we try to initiate some ideas how to connect with people here in Thailand. For example, last year in September, when there was a big flood in Korat in Northeast, we decided we wanted to send some food. But we didn't just want to send a truck or to send a check or something. So we had the delegation going from the embassy. We ordered like a lot of food bags. And we were walking in the floods over there in water that came up to here.
To the elbow.
Yes. In some places it came higher. And we were actually walking in the water and meeting the people, looking in their eyes. I cannot speak Thai, but my staff, they were talking and they were saying, it's important for us that the world see us. We are not alone over there. People actually remember us. And so you see people, and I believe that this is important. Another thing was we went to a shelter for women, and we had some activities with them. We brought some therapists, and we brought them some presents, because these are women that had they had violence at home or other. So sometimes people tend to forget. People are, they are far away. We don't see them. It's important for us to see people that are less fortunate. Yeah. And maybe one more example is that we decided to focus on people with disabilities. This is one of our main focuses. And we try also to work together with Thailand when it comes to policy. Israel has now, and it hasn't been like that. If you spoke with Israelis about 20 years ago, it was a completely different situation, and Israelis didn't do much, and the government also didn't do much for people with disabilities. Today, our laws in Israel are very advanced, very inclusive, and also it gives you like no option situation that if it's a government or a private entity, you have to do 1, 2, 3 in order to make sure that everyone can participate and everyone can be part of the business. So we are happy again on that note as well to share the knowledge that we have and to work together to see if there is anything that we can actually do in order to assist here. So we try to do also the people to people, not only on the government level, but also with people.
Okay. So thank you, Ms. Saqib, for talking with us today. And I'm sure that the relationship between Thailand and Israel will only get stronger and have more cooperation in the future. And that's all for Voice of the Nation. Thank you for staying with us.